Am I the asshole for not paying for my niece's operation with my wedding fund? IF 30 have an older brother, Thomas 43. His first wife passed leaving him with my niece and he remarried 2 years later. My dad and uncle inherited 2 lands from my grandfather. Dad left his land after it was split for me and Thomas, but Thomas sold it with my knowledge and kept all money for himself. I couldn't do anything about it cause I barely had money for college and cause Sil said if I tried to do anything about it I'd never see my niece. But I went NC and couldn't establish a relationship with my niece anyway, even though I used to take care of her when she was little. She's now 16, born with a health condition and had her first operation at the age of 1. I later inherited the other land my uncle had after he disowned Thomas. I sold it and spent money on necessities and used rest to fund my wedding soon. Thomas reached out recently and we spoke few times. He kept mentioning my niece struggling with her health condition again. He asked if I wanted to meet her but I wanted time. After few more conversations, he said he needs help paying for her upcoming surgery and asked if I could help with money. He brought up uncle's land and the money I put aside for my wedding. I was shocked. I asked where he knew all that. He said he's been talking to a friend, mutual, and he told him everything. Mutual friend said Thomas spent the money from the land on several expensive golfing trips and anniversary celebrations with his wife. He's now in debts struggling to pay for my niece's medical expenses. I said sorry but there was nothing I can do to help. He kept trying to convince me my wedding can wait and my niece should matter to me, reminding me that I'm only family he got left and I should consider helping him for my niece's sake, not his. I reminded him of what he did to me years ago and how left me to struggle for myself. I said he was lucky I didn't sue him for the money he owed me. He said that this was his wife's idea and he was stupid and regretted listening to her, then said I could still sue them but since they'll go to jail cause they can't pay me back then my niece becomes my responsibility. He said I could hate him all I want but he's just asking for my niece. He pressured me to go see her but I felt highly uncomfortable doing that. We had a heated argument after he tried to get my fiancée to postpone the wedding. I ended up telling him to leave and he said it was okay. We'll talk again, but I said all I had to say, yet he let my friends know and they asked what's wrong with me prioritizing wedding over my niece. Thomas then emailed me saying I can't blame him for trying to help his kid and that he knew I'm a better person than he is and I will do this out of goodness of my heart. He said he'd pay me back with his wife's inheritance once her father passes, which he doesn't know when but he hopes soon enough. I'm still dumbfounded by what he said. Thing is, I've always wanted a good wedding and because I got stuck with student loans for so losing I still live in small place, still haven't gone on trips I wanted, still haven't achieved most of what I wanted. I'm 30 and feel like life already passed me by. If I let Thomas get my wedding fund then I'll have to start saving for my wedding. Not the asshole. Anyone who's harassing you about this is not your friend. It may be that he has given them a twisted version of his narrative and you can clear that up, but if they continue to harass you about delaying your wedding and giving your money to your brother for his child, then they are definitely not your friends. Not the asshole. He sold his land and squandered the money carelessly, knowing his daughter has a health condition that would require further medical treatment. You were cut off from seeing your niece for all these years, and now she's basically a stranger to you that just happens to share some DNA. If you had been part of her life all along, it would be different. As it stands, he was irresponsible in planning to care for his daughter's medical issues, and now he's manipulating you into giving up part of your inheritance, and delay your wedding, to cover for his failure. You're definitely not the asshole. Last comment on the subject, but this is all you need to know about your brother. He said he'd pay me back with his wife's inheritance once her father passes, which he didn't know when but he hopes soon enough. Your brother is actively wishing his Phil will die so he can get money. That's all he cares about. If the cards were aligned where he got a big chunk of change if you died, he'd probably be hoping for that too. Fuck him. Don't give him a cent and threaten to sue him for your half of your dad's land if he reaches out to you again. NTA. But how can you be sure that he will use the money for his daughter's treatment? NTA. It's your money and she is by far not the only little girl you've never met who needs a surgery. Not sure about the laws where you are, but here they will do the surgery and send the bills to collections if it's life or death. I'm gonna say not the asshole here, and honestly I kind of wonder if there's really a surgery or if he's just looking for money in general and using an excuse. Waiting to ask was clearly trying to make you comfortable before he asked, and if it was such a pressing concern, shouldn't it have been brought up right away? He's the asshole here and so is whoever it was that told him about the money. Not the asshole. Amazing how he only wants to talk when he wants something from you, isn't it? Not the asshole. It's your money, and they're clearly just using you. Contact only started after they found out about your money gain. I feel bad for your niece and she's the victim here, but at the end of the day she's not your responsibility, and it sounds like they had opportunities to alternatively fund it, but they chose a lavish lifestyle over the child's health. Am I the asshole for my response to my cousin's pregnancy announcement at my husband's goodbye party? First time, please be kind. My husband's getting deployed overseas very soon, and I decided to invite both families for a cookout, goodbye party for him before he leaves. My cousin and I aren't close. She married 3 times and has 2 kids. She divorced her first husband cause he left work and became a stay-at-home parent. Divorced her second cause he didn't do chores and kept working long hours. Now her current husband, Tom, or Tommy, does nothing. He contributes nothing towards chores. In fact, she does everything for him while he just hangs out with friends and plays video games most of the time. I know this because she constantly complains to mom and aunt about it. My cousin's reasoning for choosing him is that he has so many other great features. I gotta say he is handsome and is one of the most gorgeous guys she's ever been with, but he's rude, loud, talks back, has awful sense of humor if at all. And money has clearly stunted his growth mentally. On to the encounter. At the cookout, everyone was sitting after we ate and my husband was giving a little speech about what he's been experiencing at the moment, as well as giving sincere goodbyes to his mom and dad and little sister. He then talked about us and how much he'll miss our little ones. It was emotional till my cousin carelessly interrupted us and playfully said it wasn't like my husband was dying or isn't coming back in few months, then said she had big news. Everyone looked at her as she smiled and said she was pregnant. She always had interrupted things like my proposal and my baby shower to make her announcements. I got mad seeing the attention instantly drew on her getting hugs and congrats. My husband seemed irritated and got quiet. I just got up from my seat feeling confused about how to react and told my cousin, "Hey, listen. I know you're so happy to be able to keep Tommy's sperm as pets, but this is a goodbye party for Kevin, so your happy news should be shared another time, another place." Families were split, some were laughing and some got upset. My cousin, almost crying, silently left the yard as aunt followed. I got nasty looks from my side of family. Then both mom and aunt berated me for my inappropriate reaction and my response, and making such disgusting comment about my cousin's pregnancy and humiliating her like that. I explained that this was yet another attempt from her to hijack another occasion I host, and I said this in heat of moment, but aunt saw nothing wrong with sharing good news and demanded I apologize for ruining my cousin's moment and making her feel awful. I feel awful too and think I was insensitive with how I responded. Am I the asshole? Info people keep asking why I invited my cousin in the first place, knowing she's pulled this before, but I caved in to my mom and aunt's pressure to include every member in the family in every event my husband and I host. Info 2: my husband was getting heavily emotional while we were talking about our loss, and I'm sure everyone noticed but got distracted when my cousin stood up to announce her pregnancy. Tommy didn't react at all, he just kept a straight face and didn't even get up from his seat. Lol, no, but you are a legend. I am gonna use that line, haha, not the asshole. Not the asshole. But, you just need to not invite her over anymore. Aunt saw nothing wrong with sharing good news. Ruining my cousin's moment. Can your aunt and cousin not read a freaking room? She's had this moment twice already. This ain't her first pregnancy announcement, and it doesn't sound like it'll be her last. If you comment was tasteless, so was her timing. Not the asshole. Interrupt her birth. Not the asshole. She not only stole your husband's thunder, she made light of his future at his expense to prop up her news. Not the asshole. Your cousin sounds incredibly self-absorbed. The party wasn't about her, and she decided to make a rude comment to your husband, who is deploying, and then make a big announcement. I can understand her casually bringing it up in conversation, but what she did was out of line. Honestly, your response was a lot more polite than mine would have been. You have nothing to apologize for. If your mom and aunt are so in support of her, they can throw her a pity party. I have relatives who do this kind of thunder stealing, and they can't understand why people shun them. Not the asshole. If she didn't want to be humiliated, she shouldn't have made her special announcement at someone else's party and life event. Simple as that. Not the asshole. As a military wife, I completely understand your feelings. Am I the asshole for having a meltdown and telling my partner he ruined our weekend getaway? Long background, but please bear with me. Thanks to Rona, my partner, 41M, and I, 33F, haven't been able to travel since March 2020. Now that we're both fully vaccinated and things have opened up, we both really wanted to go away, so we decided to travel to a city nearby that we both love for the weekend. I planned everything. We're both foodies, so I got us a very cute hotel next to the culinary center so we would be walking distance. Partner hates driving downtown and biking is not an option. I also booked some of the best restaurants in town. He likes to sleep in on vacation, so I made sure to book everything as late as possible. Finally, I booked one activity for each day we would be there, none physical activities, since my partner doesn't love that. I made sure to book them with at least 2 between meals so we could take little breaks. Now on to the main conflict. Since the moment we arrived, my partner did nothing but complain. About everything. A list. The hotel was not near a coffee shop he likes. That coffee shop was in a bad neighborhood that we hated. The restaurant are all too far. Every place we went to was between 10 to 30 million walk from the hotel. Why did I book activities? He would have preferred to chill at the hotel. It's too hot. We were unlucky and a heat wave hit as we went there. He's tired. Even with 2 between activities, he felt I was just pushing him to do too much. I woke him up too early. On the first day I woke him up earlier so he would be able to get coffee and baked goods. The next day I let him sleep in and skip that, but he made us late and complained I was rushing him. Don't get me wrong, it's not like he only complained. Once we would be at a restaurant and we would start eating, we would have a good time. And he liked the 2 activities I booked. But the thing is that the positive talking would last maybe 15 million, and then he would go back to complaining. Normally I'm the more positive and cheerful out of the 2 of us. I find enjoyment on anything I do, and I try my best to acknowledge the things that bother him while trying to steer his focus to the positive. But this time I just couldn't. The complaints kept coming and coming. So I started getting short-tempered, and countering his complaints negatively. By the last night we came out of dinner and he started complaining. I full-on started an argument about his attitude. So he left me and went to the hotel on his own. I took some time to cool off and went back to our room, but when we started arguing again I just exploded. Full red face, ugly crying, telling him that he ruined our weekend with his attitude and that he's an asshole for being so negative during the weekend I planned for us. He countered he's entitled to his feelings and he should be able to express his thoughts. The next day we packed and left in cold silence. Now I'm sad because what should have been a lovely gateway is all bittered up, and I feel if I wouldn't have exploded maybe we could have saved it. Not the asshole. Everything you planned, you catered around his wants and preferences, which he ultimately did end up enjoying each thing individually. You did this from a good place, wanting a special time with him. For his time on this trip, he complained a tremendous amount. Everything you planned and picked was not good enough for him, one reason or another. Why is your relationship so one-sided? Why are you allowing him to treat you so poorly like this? Maybe it's time to reconsider your compatibility. Not the asshole. This entire thing reads like a mom posting about a spoiled child. I was going to say no asshole because even though you planned a trip and made so much effort, we're all pretty messed up in one way or another from dealing with the effects of the C-19 restrictions, as well as other stuff. So initially I thought it was just people being on 2 different pages, i.e. you wanted to explore and he really needed to relax. But it's too outrageous that he would expect to whine and complain and need cajoling throughout a holiday you're both meant to enjoy, and then he has the nerve to make the argument about how he's entitled to express himself after storming off on you? Get the fuck out. Not the asshole. ETA judgment. Info. Did you ask your partner for any input during the planning? It seems like there's a lot of, I did X because I figured Y. But was any of it gleaned from asking him directly? Not the asshole. Some people don't realize that they are literally always complaining. It took a friend to point that out to me that I did that when I was in my 20s. My mom bitched about stuff, my friends bitched about stuff, it was normalized to me. Luckily I had a friend that pointed it out in a very kind way that made me think. While I did it, I didn't even realize I was doing, it was just conversation. I'm forever grateful to my friend for helping me see how negative I was. Not the asshole. He did ruin the getaway. You planned everything to make you both happy and tried your best, but all he did was complain about various things that he could have helped plan if he had that much of an issue. Bring this up with a couples counselor together or just reconsider your relationship. It's pretty obvious he doesn't pull his weight in the relationship. Did you tell him about everything you booked before booking, or was it all a surprise to him when you arrived? Not the asshole. But don't keep living like that. I spent so much time doing exactly this. Trying so hard to plan awesome experiences for us as a couple to have my ex ruin everything with his attitude. I used to fantasize about having a partner I could enjoy life with. He shouldn't be sucking the joy out of you. Life is so much more fun with a partner who is actually your companion. Am I the asshole for ignoring my boyfriend's concern? Saturday was my friend's wedding, and it was at an event hall about an hour and a half away. I put the place into Google Maps and it said that the place might be closed when we arrived. The listed hours said it was open MF business hours, but I ignored that because I knew the wedding was there. My boyfriend said the place was closed, and asked if I was sure it was right. I said I was sure because I had looked up the location before, and that the listed hours were probably the times you could visit the venue or speak to someone about event planning. So I told him it was fine. Later in the trip, he called the venue twice but got voicemail. He said he was sure the place was closed. I told him the phone number was probably just a general office number, not the actual coordinators. He asked to see the invitation and I said I left it at my place, but that I had definitely checked beforehand. My boyfriend said we should call someone else to confirm, and I said no because the only people I could contact were the bride and her sister, and I wasn't going to bother them. There was one person I'm Facebook friends with who I thought was probably going and could have messaged, but I wasn't sure if he was invited and I didn't want to make things awkward in case he wasn't. My boyfriend said I should message him anyway, and I refused because I haven't spoken to him since high school and I really don't know him, so I didn't want to bother him when I didn't need his help. My boyfriend said we should go back and get the invitation, and I said no to that too because it was already a long drive and I didn't want to turn back. I like planning to arrive at weddings half an hour early. He said we could go back and still make it on time, but I didn't want to take the risk that we'd be late and waste gas to get info I already had. I asked him why would an event hall only be open during business hours? Most events take place outside of those times. He just said, sure, I guess, and seemed annoyed but I kept on driving. Everything was fine at the wedding and we had a good time, so I figured we were okay, but he told me he was upset with me. He said that even though it worked out, he had concerns and I dismissed them, ignored his suggestions and did nothing to solve the problem. He said that since the high school guy was at the wedding after all, I could have contacted him and asked to confirm the location. He also said we didn't need to arrive at the wedding half an hour early so I could have gone back for the invitation. I said that I'm sorry he was upset, but that I believed we didn't have a good enough reason to check the location again. I already checked the location before, there was a logical explanation for the listed hours being weird, and it was my friend getting married, not his. I do feel a little bad because I know he has anxiety, but I still felt this wasn't a good enough reason to bother people unnecessarily or make the trip longer. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. You are correct, a venue would be open. You knew the info. A buffer of 30 minutes is good in case of traffic. I understand he has anxiety, but he can't make you responsible for catering to it like bugging a bride right before the wedding or asking random people if they were invited. You knew the info. It wasn't luck that it worked out. Not the asshole. He's upset because he feels like you weren't taking what he was saying seriously enough? Funny cuss, that's what he was doing to you when he couldn't trust you to have the correct information. I'm glad it worked out this time, but know that it won't always. Sometimes you will be wrong and your boyfriend right. You won't know who is right until afterwards, which means you need to humbly respect his opinion now. First, I think it was dumb to leave the invitation at home. Second, I think you should have contacted the bride's sister to confirm. You're lucky you turned out to be right. If you hadn't, I too would be yelling, see? If you respect your boyfriend, you respect his opinions. You wrote them off. Be nicer in the future and I'll say nah. Not the asshole. But your boyfriend is for ruining your friend's wedding by getting upset over petty could-haves. You gave his concerns plenty of validation. You reasoned your points clearly. You planned the trip ahead and checked the location beforehand and left nice and early. Your boyfriend expecting anything more is unreasonable. No assholes here, but you really should be kinder to your boyfriend in these kinds of situations. You know he has anxiety and how he can be affected by things. Part of being in a relationship is being considerate of your partner. You didn't have to turn around, but you could have simply validated his feelings, then explained the situation. A little validation and empathy go a long way. Not the asshole. You prepared in a thorough and timely manner. He failed to do that. He distrusted your own thoughtful and timely prep. How could you be an asshole in that scenario? How could be not? Not the asshole. Anybody with common sense would have been able to deduce that an event will most likely take place outside of an event hall's listed hours. Not to mention the fact that those hours probably haven't been updated in years. Nah. Sounds like boyfriend is quite anxious and that you don't want to be questioned and just want the confidence from boyfriend that you know what you're doing. Anxiety can often make us do things, worry about things that looking back are quite silly or irrelevant. Sometimes though in relationships you need to ask yourself what's more important, being right or being happy with the one you love, even if that means doing something you don't want to do. Though not calling the bride was a good idea.